Hello everyone, Christina Blondheim, Director of Partnerships of the Americas. We have an incredible panel here today. They do come with me with a very wide range of program sizes, small to large, and we're just going to go ahead and jump into their unique challenges. Jacob, welcome. You managed a pretty remarkable transformation. 2 years worth of work put into 2 days. Can you tell me a little bit what happened when you started with Grammarly?
Yeah, so I joined Grammarly a little over a year and a half ago. No, I won't go too deep into it all, but about 2 weeks into onboarding, the Ukrainian situation happens, Russia invades, and we have our second largest office in Kyiv. And so I'm in the middle of onboarding, and I have our executives go, you can stop onboarding now, you can help us relocate, essentially evacuate. When you included families and everything, over 3,000 employees plus families. And so first step was getting them out of Ukraine and those who could leave. And part of that whole process was moving from Kyiv to Lviv, and then from Lviv into Poland, and then from Poland they were essentially at that point free to go wherever they wanted at that point. We weren't dictating where employees had to move. They didn't have to leave Ukraine. We were just encouraging them, and so we issued, like, I think the most, I guess you would say, literal lump sum ever is we had an employee, because we weren't sure how the banking system was going to work in Ukraine. We had an employee in Lviv with backpacks full of cash and handing them to our employees as they left. And so they also downloaded an app onto their phone, an SOS app. And so we asked them that every 48 hours they check in. On the back end, myself and the war crisis response team, we're monitoring this, setting up analytics and setting up some dashboards. So we started tracking where all of our employees left. So initially they the initial movements, like the first probably week, you saw this huge move to Krakow. And then after that, it was just everywhere as they just started heading off. But over time, we started seeing employees start to kind of gather in certain areas. So some in Portugal, many stayed in Poland, Germany, Spain. They kind of moved around, but a lot of them would gather together. Skipping forward about 6-7 months, this helped us start making decisions. So as we saw where our employees went, it also, our dashboard was connected to Workday, so we knew where our employees, who from our sales team was where, for business continuity reasons, how many of our employees were still in Ukraine and could potentially cease working at any moment, as well as who was in what country. This helped us, it wasn't the primary thing, but helped us open up our first EU office, which we did in Berlin, because so many of our employees were located in Germany. Berlin was already one of the cities we were considering prior to the war opening up a hub office, so that helped there. The other big one was Krakow. We realized a lot of our employees stayed in Poland. Depending on their job roles, we were able to track and see most of our engineers were moving to Warsaw. A lot of our support staff, or those who still had family members who couldn't leave Ukraine, were in Krakow. But all of our dashboards was constantly, we were looking and we were like, okay, so Krakow, we signed a lease for some office space there. Berlin, for business continuity, we wanted to move our engineers to Berlin. Well, we were able to see where are they all at and start moving them to Berlin, one of the big issues being housing in Berlin. So we were able to immediately go, okay, we have this many employees who are going to have to move from other parts of the EU to Berlin. How many? We started signing leases then to start moving them, because we knew that finding housing was going to be a major issue. And so we were able to secure a pretty good sized block of homes, apartments, for them to move. So all of that was based off of working with our people analytics team, our engineer and leadership teams, and also the biggest point was our employees, which I think we had well over 90%. I think it was close to 100% of consistency and checking in with their SOS app within 48 hours. So that was super helpful as well.
It's amazing. And I would like to highlight that he was actually hired to create a mobility program. When he had joined, there was not one. So that was amazing.
I still haven't done that.
You'll get to it eventually. Let's go over to Diego. You have a unique situation. Your company currently operates as one. There are going to be some changes. From my understanding, you're going to be separating your global mobility company along with the two different companies. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. I joined Solvay 2 years ago, and 6 months later, they said, well, the company will split. And say, well, this is change gamer. What does it mean for global mobility? And we are now on the project running, and the workload is completely crazy because the project is, at the moment, actually the split is on the 1st of July, so it's coming. And we are working with, because in most of the countries, the immigration is linked to the company, into the legal entity, or to the mother company. It's not linked to the employee. Well, in some countries it is, but in most of the countries it's not. So we are working with immigration. There are a lot of challenges, people coming and going. We need to have the correct company combination, because you cannot have employees on one company going to another company. Everything is changing. We need to bring people back, sending people over, checking if the legal entity is correct, working on immigration, and we are working actually global mobility, all the central functions will work under a TSA, a transformation agreement, which means that we will support both companies until at least until end of 2025. This means that somewhere along these next years, we will have to work on, that's why that data and analytics is so important. We will have to work by tailoring and building new policies for the two companies. They are different, the environment is different, their needs are different, and so we will have to work on that, because basically it's a whole new project. There are different projects, different countries, country combinations will be completely different, so the policies will have to be completely different. And for that we need analytics, we need data, we need track record, we need information of what the market is doing, what we were doing, what the employees want, what they need instead of what they want. And this will be a challenge for the next 2 years. Yeah.
Thank you, Diego. Is there anything that you want to highlight that you're currently incorporating and why it's so important to your program?
Sorry, can you?
Why data would be so powerful to the program during this transition?
Yeah, it's powerful because we need to we need cost savings. We need employees to tailor what they need. We need flexibility, and analytics. It's that, because we need to know when to relocate, where to relocate. Usually, there is an idea that relocating employees during summer, it's easier because school is ending, there is vacation, people have time to plan, time to do everything. That's an employee side. What about the cost? In 2022, Solvay relocated almost 60 employees in 2 months from Latvia to Portugal, because our Latvia site was closing, and we decided to give the opportunity for all employees to be relocated, especially to Portugal. And we realized that the cost was incredible, because there was shortage on temp housing. There was the real estate market was crazy. There was no houses. Instead of 1 month of temp accommodation, we had to extend for 2, 3, 4 months. The cost was crazy. So using analytics on that, where to relocate, when to relocate, when the cost is more effective, does this make a change to the employee or not? It's difficult for the employee to change or not in a different period. This will be important. Not only this, but for example, port congestions. What is the cost of bringing goods to one country during a specific period? What is the cost of doing that in another period? what is the time to spend to bring the goods during one period instead of doing it another period. Those are all game changers to our policies, into our costs, and to the customer experience.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And Billy, your program, obviously you're not faced with such as the discussed challenges, but you run a pretty large program?
Yes, we do. We support about 10 to 15% of our company's population, so of a 12,000 employee company, so that's about, it can easily reach 1,000 sometimes. So with that said, there's a lot of work in terms of 1,000 employees that we're supporting here and there, that there's a lot of minds, there's a lot of changes, there's a lot of different type of scenario you can think of has happened at EA. And so, I mean, we always have to stay in limbo and just really have to adjust. And as we have such a big program, whenever we had to make a decision, we can't just say, oh, based on gut feeling, this is what we're going to go with. No. We always have to support it by data, is because that's what's going to make us make well-informed decisions.
And what types of decisions are being made in your program based on data analytics?
Lately, again, there's a lot of buzzword about cost saving, but the way how I look at it personally is, how do we spend our budget intentionally? Right? Where's the priorities? What can we make the most out of our dollars? So a lot of decision was being made around that area is, now with the amount of work that we have and the work trend of being flexible, do we need to relocate someone? Can we relocate someone to a different location? All of that is driven by data as we look at it to see how we can maximize the growth of our company. And the way how you can see in my title is talent mobility, we purposely rebrand ourselves to be talent mobility is because we have a strong contribution into talent development. And so when we look at it from that perspective, there is again that additional lens of using data to see how is mobility driving talent and development, whether that be retention, whether that be career growth, all of that, as we link the data together, it tells a story. And so, which is the reason why we're always so big in terms of making decisions from data. One of the recent examples that we have done is, again, promoting and building up the policy of internal mobility. How can we develop our internal talent? Where are our internal talents? All of that is driven by data as we build out the policy. And we were successfully built out a policy to really allow a lot of these opportunities within our company to be shared internally and supported by mobility in terms of how and where can they grow their career.
Actually, I think that's very important, because one of the things of data is also, if we are using global mobility as if we retain talent, it becomes an investment. If you are not able to retain them, it becomes a cost. And do we really have a long-term position for the employee that goes on relocation? Is that an investment? And sometimes in my company, I see that the employees are going on an expatriation, and they will use the talents they have, or the talents they built in the company, in another one, because you are not able to retain them after the expatriation. And that's very important. And data gives us the important information to tailor things on a way to keep them in the company, because they are talents and we need them. And we are on a war of talent.
And we purposely look at the word not from a cost perspective, we look at it from an investment perspective. That allows a different lens into the same dollar spending, but in order to make it into an investment, intentional investment, rather than just focus on, cost saving, drive down the number, drive down the cost. No, it's about making that intentional investment and see where you can invest and make the most out of it. That's our driving model.
Yeah, I love the tell us story with the data, because so at Grammarly, we just got a new CEO. He comes from Google. He was one of the primary drivers of rolling out Chrome. And I joked around earlier, like, I haven't got to building a program yet. It's kind of a half-truth. I've been so focused on Ukraine and some other things. And so I put together kind of like a preliminary, here's a program that I'm looking at for Grammarly. And and his immediate response was, "Where's the data to support all this?" And I kind of went like, "No, this is just my gut feeling." You know, so I'm went back to not to the drawing board, but just kind of like, okay, how are we going to approach this? And really trying to make everything fit with. At Grammarly, we have a remote first hybrid work model, which basically means during COVID, everyone left San Francisco and went out all across the US. That's what remote first hybrid means for me, where I'm at. It's just like, okay, no one is in the city anymore. And so what does that mean for relocation? And what does that mean for our relocation program? And how can I build out a program that fits that model where we're not really asking anyone, at least not yet, to come in to be in San Francisco. I'm in San Diego. I'm not in San Francisco. I mean, the bulk of our talent at this point is elsewhere, and so I'm kind of approaching it from a data. Not kind of. I'm teaming with our people analytics team. We're looking at where are all of our employees right now, and part of our remote first hybrid model is that depending on what level you are, whatever your job level, you're expected to be in the office a certain amount of time per quarter. So for some people, that is could be up to 4 weeks a quarter in the office, which isn't a big deal if you're in the city because you're just back to going into the office, normal, run of the mill every day. But if you're living in Texas now, this might fall on deaf ears at some point because I'm just talking about the U.S. But you're flying out. There's hotels. There's all stuff. It gets really expensive really fast. So I'm working on building out a dashboard, a full dashboard that shows, and it's constantly kind of providing us with way more insight and allowing me to build out what is this program going to look like based on here's our employees, here's where they all live, here's how much money, so we're tying the dashboard into our travel app, we're tying it into Workday, so we know their job level, we know how much we're spending every quarter on each one of them traveling to our office. And then here's how often their job role is expected to be. So now at the end of the day, and here's what their salary is. And so at the end of the day, we go, this is how much we're spending. Now can I build a relocation program that says, oh, for an L5 job level, we're spending $60K minimum a year for them just to travel. That's it. And so, so now I'm starting, so my gut feeling was right on my program, just to let you know. But the dashboards now are telling a story that supports that gut feeling. And so as I build this out and as I'm kind of putting things together, I'm sharing it with our CPO and everyone, they're all like, yeah, that makes sense. This is making sense. Keep going in that direction. And the story is able to kind of hit every area. Our CFO, oh, we can save some money. So like, where's our break even? I'm like, well, if we spend this much money on a relo for this person, within 6 months, we've made our money back. Our head of human resources loves it because it's better engagement, everything if people are moving closer. There's just, the dashboard is telling a really compelling story to support the program I want to roll out and support the relocation costs.
Do you think that you'll ever bring all the employees back? I know you hired. Do you think you'll ever make them come back into work? I guess this question's for all of you.
I'll go first. I'm not leaving San Diego, so I hope not.
Okay.
No. No, I don't think it will. I don't think it'll bring everyone, but it could have a big impact though, especially with our recruiting team. So part of that is telling them like, hey, maybe we should focus our hiring for these positions within commuting distance of the office.
Billy, what about you? What does your remote look like?
Personal point of view, I think this is a new opportunity. It's a new trend. It allows us to tap into other talent market that was not yet available before, mainly because we had to relocate them to a certain location now that we might not need to. Yeah, personal thought, because again, EA hasn't taken a position in that area, but I really honestly think that this is a great new trend with the flexibility and a new opportunity to tap into and grow today's talent into tomorrow.
And a slightly different vertical, what about you? Do you guys have much remote?
You guys what? Sorry?
Have much remote work?
No. No.
Moving on to the next question.
No, I think we are not. That's the new thing. So we'll keep it as it is. I think the customer experience, the engagement of the employees, being able to be flexible, not to go to the office, working on wherever they want, with some boundaries, of course. Because sometimes people say that work from anywhere is exactly, I'm going to the Maldives and I'm going there and I'm working there and I don't care. Well, it's not really like that. But don't want to bring people back. We want people to be happy. And this is where the happiness is. If going to the office would be much better, then we'll bring them back. But it's not the case. It's much better to be flexible, stay at home, work from where you want, where it makes you happy, where your imagination can drive you through, and probably imagination is not really at the open space with thousands of people. Probably imagination is in the countryside, around your pool or something, or around the trees. This is where people want to be. So
I think for me, it goes back to that point, being intentional. Right? If you go into the office and it works better and you have higher productivity and you have an intention and a purpose to go in.
Awesome. I do have one more question for the panel, but I wanted to open it up and see if anybody in the audience had any questions for the guys. No questions? Oh, okay.
Do you guys have any data that helps you understand employee retention linked with your mobility program? Sorry, I'll just repeat if you guys can't hear me, but I was wondering if you have data that is showing you what your retention looks like linked with your assignees and your mobility program.
Absolutely. And again, one of the examples that we had was building out the internal mobility policy. Exactly that data we studied was what's the retention rate and what's the attraction rate at the same time as it ties to people who have had mobility experience. Mobility experience could be self-driven moves, could be business-driven move, all of that data we had at our fingertip. So it's just more about partnering with the right team, the people analytics team, and just really looking into it, and voila. When you mash those two data together, it told us a great story and where to invest into.
We have not started looking into that.
No. We have. We know that we are not doing enough. Just that. But then what we do with them, that's the case. Okay, we know we are not retaining them. So what we will do? Until now, it has been a difficult journey, but we will get there.
Maybe if I can just extend that question a little bit, Billy. You said it's telling an interesting story. What is that story?
Story as in, what is the trajectory of the person's career? Whether they have mobility versus they didn't. What about performance data? That was the data that told us that, hey, if someone have had some sort of mobility experience, they stay longer and they perform better, and that their career growth from an average standpoint is better than people who didn't have mobility experience. That was then this hypothesis statement that we brought back to the leadership in a sense to, again, get the seat at the table too, and we got the seat at the table because we were looking at it and presenting it in data that support our statement.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Billy. Wanted to understand how this data has influenced the percentage of mobile employees. You mentioned earlier it's about 12%. That's quite high, right? Our research said about 2%. And also curious to see what other panels say about their percentage of mobile employees in general.
It's interesting, right? Especially walking out from the pandemic, it opened up that new trend of employee able to go to different places. So with that said, one of our additional pillars that came from the pandemic was we are also handling the flexible work or remote work as the industry might know it. We just like to call it differently. It actually added another population to the people that we support. So I would say the data show that, again, it has impacted the business-driven relocation, but at the same time, it exponentially grew the employee requested relocation. In total, the volume of our work has gone up. My team can attest to it that they have become a lot more busier because of that.
What was the question? it's really hard because, again, going back to the Ukraine, it's a huge percentage because all of them have relocated, and so, but I don't know what the percentage is of the company we have, but it's a pretty heavy percent that have relocated at this point. Most of them, again, at this point, it's either Poland, Germany, or Portugal. But so it's I guess it was self-relocation. They chose where they went. That relocation helped us determine where to open up an office, which was pretty interesting.
So, what was the question again? So, okay, I remember. Well, 3 years ago, Solvay is a 22,000 employee company. So 4 years ago, we had 400 assignments and plus permanent transfers. Due to the project of separating the company, due to the exposure of risks and to control the cost because of the project, we decided to start not going on new assignments and let the ones that are existing to end. So we are now with 100 only, but within 2 separated companies, and we will start to work as 2 on the 1st of July, but the real change will be in the beginning of 2024. One of the companies, maybe 2, but one of the companies will have to invest a lot on that because the locations are different. They need expertise. They need managers to manage their sites, their factories, and so we'll see a boom for sure. It's still a bit blurred of what will happen, but it will go up for sure. And actually, that's also around data because we are trying to understand from the business. Okay, give us the information so that we are prepared when the time comes.
Thank you, guys. And we have one more question, Blythe.
Go easy, Blythe.
When you were talking about internal mobility, do you measure DEI within that? Because you said people that relocate seem to be more successful. Do those numbers play into that as well?
The good part is the data is available. I'm not an expert in that area, but I did work. I mean, we as a team did work with the DEI and study that. I'm just not close to enough to answer that question. But again, data being available, connect those data, and it will tell you that story.
Awesome. Thanks, Billy.
You know, it's interesting because one of the when we had so many employees in Poland, a lot were in Warsaw and a lot in Krakow. And kind of in a roundabout way, addressing DE&I, our decision, there was a lot of people pushing for us to rent office, like a WeWork space in Warsaw, a lot in Krakow, but we knew we were only going to do one or the other. And demographically, Krakow was primarily our female employees, and that was due to the fact that many of them had spouses that couldn't leave Ukraine. So, because they had to serve in the military. And so one of the main reasons why we decided on Krakow was to support all of them and also the schooling system was more favorable for, I can't remember why, but it was. So for for everyone that had kids. So that was a big reason we chose Krakow over Warsaw was to support them.
Well, in terms of that, we do it on a corporate level. Actually, the company is really into that on a corporate level, and when it comes to us, this is already filtered. So we don't do it at global mobility level because we know we have a very good system on a corporate level.
And the screen is yelling at me, so I would just like to say thank you guys so much for flying to London for this, and thank you guys for coming.